Significance testing is a 20th century phenomenon, although we take it for granted now, and it's quite a ubiquitous approach to statistics. It's not always been the case. Ronald Fisher developed the technique initially to examine the effects of different types of agricultural techniques on the productivity of those different growing techniques. Because this was difficult to control experimentally, there were variations in plots and soil and weather and orientation to the sun and so on. They needed a technique that would allow them to work out what was just random variability and what was differences in cropping that were most likely to be attributable to the independent variables such as fertilizing and so on. So social sciences in some ways are similar because you can't often fully control all the various possible causes of variance and variability, but you need to know then to a certain degree of confidence whether the results could have been due to chance or could have been due to the experimental variable. So the logic of significance testing is really that you start with a null hypothesis, which is the expected effect, or usually a null effect, so the expectation of no effect or no relationship. And based on sample data, we can then estimate the likelihood that this null hypothesis is true. And based on a pre-established researcher chosen critical alpha level, one can then make a decision about whether to accept the null hypothesis or reject the null hypothesis. But this is always a gamble and a bet based on probabilities, and sometimes the decision will be correct and sometimes it will be incorrect. So the significance testing method spread to other fields such as the social sciences, and this spread was particularly aided by the development of computers and software packages and related training, such that significance testing has become a widespread and arguably overly dominant approach to analysis of data, and particularly inferential statistics, where we try and generalize from a sample to a population. And this has led to some substantial critiques in the latter part of the 20th century, and as we are underway with the 21st century, we now see the culture and training shifting towards alternative and adjunct techniques. The essence of these criticisms, which do date back to as early as 1930, is I'll explore in the next section, but briefly they are that the null hypothesis is rarely true. In other words, it's highly unlikely that there is absolutely no relationship between variables or no differences between groups, and therefore even when we don't reject the null hypothesis, that falsely often implies that there is no difference, when it may be the case that there are differences. They may be notable, but we haven't yet ruled out the possibility that it could have been due to chance. Significance testing only provides a binary decision, yes or no, it's significant or it's not, and it provides the direction. Is it a positive or negative correlation, or a difference in favour of one group or the other? But mostly we're interested in the size of the effect, and that is how much of an effect, how much of a relationship, how much of a difference, not just whether or not there is a difference. And this leads on to the notion of statistical versus practical significance. A statistical difference may have been unlikely to have occurred by chance, but it may not be that noticeable or notable, whereas practical significance implies a relationship which does have a noticeable effect in the real world. Finally, significance is a function not just of the effect size, but also of the sample size and the critical alpha, and therefore it's not a pure indicator just of the size of an effect.